My name's Cody Smith.
I'm Tierra Penner.
Hi there, I'm Tim Ocampo.
And the three of us are the hosts of the Last Podbender.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to the Last Podbender. My name is Tim Ocampo, and today... wait, what? Hold on. I ran out of words. The flow was there. Oh no, the Fire Nation is attacking. Everybody run!
I need to pee.
I need to pee. Yep. Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Last Podbender. My name is Tim Ocampo.
Tierra Penner.
And Cody Smith.
And this episode, we are going to be discussing episode 2 of season 1, The Avatar Returns.
Hooray! Just to kick things off, I think this was a pretty, honestly, powerful episode compared to the first episode, where it was, very lighthearted, even though they, do cover... this one was, a little bit more real, I feel, and it definitely gets into it, right away.
Before we get into it, as promised, the styles and what each tribe and stuff is based on. So I did some research, and the Water Tribe is mainly based on the Inuit and Yupik people, and it has influences with Native American and Pacific Islanders.
And I think that's very apparent in this episode, in episode 2, when Sokka's getting ready for battle, and he's painting his face in the way that he does. I think it's very apparent that the Water Tribe is derived from Native American cultures, because that's what a lot of Native American cultures would do before they went into battle. Also, just the style of the clothing, there's a lot of furs, pelts, and feathers and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's fair. The Earth Kingdom, who we haven't met anybody from, is based mainly on the Chinese culture. The air nomads were based on Tibetan, Nepalese, people from Nepal. I can't say that. Nepalese, and the Shaolin monks. And the Fire Nation was based mainly on Mesoamerican civilization, Icelandic, Hawaiian, and Polynesian cultures.
See, and I would push back on that a little bit.
It didn't say their costumes are, because their costumes were based on Japanese and Chinese ancient armor. Okay. But their culture...
I don't know. It just seems like the Fire Nation is a very honor-driven society, and I feel like that has, very strong roots in Japanese culture.
It might. It probably does. But also, all of these other cultures have very strong... influences with honor tied in. Just because,
to an extent, sure.
Just because Japanese is the one we think of when we think of desperate honor, is not that's the only culture that has that.
There's many honor cultures, and even those honor cultures, they still exist today. But I'm just saying, just based off of everything that we see in episode 2, the costumes, the fighting style, it's very, especially when Zuko is donning his armor, you're that is samurai armor.
Yeah, well, their armor isn't based on these cultures. It was just the culture, the Fire Nation, that was based on this.
Okay.
The bending styles, how the bending styles were based on different things is so the Water Tribe was based on Tai Chi, which I read was trying to be more it's based on relaxation before aggression. So their moves are very deliberate.
And fluid as well.
Yeah.
Flow, yeah.
In the Earth Kingdom.
Hungar.
Yeah.
Yes. The one I remember.
So that one, the wiki said it was defense before relaxation. So they're very defensive about their moves and stuff.
Solid stances as well. Very deep, I imagine.
The air nomads was Bagua.
Bagua.
I think that's how you say it.
That sounds right.
And it's a very defensive type of martial art. And the Fire Nation was based mostly on Northern Shaolin, which is very aggressive, which we can see in the show.
Okay.
I really liked I guess we did have a little bit of a taste of I don't even know if the word avatar state has been used yet.
No.
No, it hasn't. But I like oh my gosh. Let me just take back all my words. But I like how the episode ends with or near the ending, Aang tapping into this raw and mysterious power, which the viewer doesn't have a full explanation of, but we know that he was given it for the sake of restoring balance to the world. I think what may be mind-blowing for someone who's watching it for the first time was like, whoa, that person just spent multiple... Well, I guess that's not really mind-blowing because you see Roku in the intro doing the exact same thing. But if you're someone who skips the intro and was just watching this, you see someone bend an element that they're not I guess...
Their, base element.
Not their base element, yeah.
So another cool thing I noticed while watching is right directly after he bends, he passes out for a short time.
Oh yeah.
And the last time he used the avatar state, he passed out for 100 years. So it's improvement, but it was a very interesting thing because that doesn't happen throughout the series.
I don't know if he passed out for 100 years. I think he got frozen in an iceberg, and that's a little different than passing out.
Marvel, did Steve Rogers pass out while frozen? He did. He pulled the Steve.
Check out our other.
But I really do like how they kind of kick this off with Sokka versus Zuko, and it's you kind of find that theme throughout the entire series, kind of even when they are allies, they're always kind of butting heads.
Except for on their one adventure.
Yeah, except for when they have the adventure, but I feel it's because they're both kind of trying to be the protector or the alpha of the group, my way or the highway. I think they're similar in age. It seems at least
they are, and I also think another similarity that kind of makes them butt heads almost is they both don't really have father figures in their life. I know Uncle Iro is, but they both kind of lost their fathers at a younger age. But Sokka had a loving father, and Zuko did not. And so I think that kind of background really makes them butt heads.
Yeah.
I love that you guys were addressing that too, because while I was watching as well, I was like, oh man, they're going to be kicking butts together in just a few seasons from now. This is so cool. How much I'm surprised that them legitimately bonking each other's heads, we saw in this episode, wasn't more of a running joke actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel the dichotomy between Zuko and Sokka, which I'm so glad you guys picked up on as well, I was speaking to you guys too, was that I think they're so different in their strengths and how they interact with the world. But where they really overlap is the sense of, I guess, role and burden that they find themselves in. Zuko is, he grew up having the pressures of royalty, of being a crown prince, and having to lead people, which he's doing now in as you see in how he leads his crew, or tries to, or is learning to. And you see also Sokka having the pressure of almost being a leader of his people as well, having to show strength and I guess be that guy, So it's so cool knowing how they turn out as characters at the very end, seeing how they always had that overlap without me being cognizant of that, from the first watch. It was wow. Yeah.
It is actually kind of funny how they do both bonk each other on the head exactly 3 times.
Same sound effect. Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah, but it's we also get to see how far advanced Zuko is
Yes.
in his training compared to Sokka, because you know they do fight and it's not even a contest.
No.
But like it also kind of illustrates the dumb luck that Sokka always has throughout the series. You know, he throws his boomerang and it like takes 5 minutes to smack Zuko in the back of the head. Like,
I think it really shows also that like Zuko is like very overconfident and cocky, and where Sokka tries his very best to improve, and he does improve by leaps and bounds throughout the series. Zuko does improve as well, but he doesn't improve as much as Sokka. You know what I mean? Like Zuko almost
He started
stagnates.
from a higher. He started at a higher bar.
Yeah, like Zuko almost like stagnates for a little while, and then like has this like self-discovery, but like Sokka throughout the entire show is improving.
I don't know if I would say Zuko stagnates. Like I think his character development and growth is one of the biggest in the entire
Not his growth.
series.
I'm saying his fighting ability.
Oh, his
like just his fighting ability. That's all I was talking about.
see.
Okay.
I do think Zuko has this really incredible arc, and I really am excited to like delve into it because I really like his arc, even though I really hate him in the beginning.
Yeah. If I were to imagine Sokka's, I guess, growth, combat prowess wise, intellectually, and just overall as a person and his heart, I feel like it's like a more steadier graph of it ascending.
Yeah.
Whereas Zuko has such intense metamorphosis, and there's times where you don't know what he's going to come out of the cocoon as, and it's just filled with so much highs and lows, and that how they depict that inner conflict is honestly so beautiful. I'm getting shivers.
I know.
Well, the fact that they can take a character and at first, like, you don't like him. You don't like him. You're like, he is the bad guy. He's an asshole. He's cocky.
A whiny little bitch.
He's arrogant. He whines a lot. But, like, you love him by the end. Like, he comes in and you're cheering for Zuko, you know?
Yeah, for
the fact that they can take that and, like I said, make a character that you don't like at first and then you fall in love with him later on is, like, masterful
So
for sure.
good.
Yeah, it's a really impressive
Whereas,
writing.
like, Sokka, you just always like, you know? He's like...
He's a staple.
He's a staple. He's kind of like your comic relief in a way.
Yeah.
But again, he also has some very solid character growth because he is the only one really
Who doesn't bend.
Who's in the good side party.
But like he takes like I'm in like I think 2 episodes from now we will see him, and he gets humiliated. But he takes it with humility, and he comes back, and he's like, "Yo, teach me." And you don't ever see Zuko do that. If he gets beaten, Zuko's just pissed.
Early on.
Early on. Okay, sorry.
I was like,
I
would disagree with that.
early on.
I would definitely disagree with that. So. But yeah, that is the thing, is like Sokka is always there to learn, and he's very humble, you know? Like, even though he kind of appears a lot of the times like braggadocious and like cocky and arrogant, he isn't that person inside.
On the inside, yeah. And I found that so fascinating during this watch, because like if I only knew Sokka through these episodes, it's kind of like he's trying to be a Chad, I guess. And so you think it's like, oh, because like the last thing Qatar says to him in this episode is like, oh yeah, Sokka, there's gonna be like a lot of firebender heads that you could just knock and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like that. But like, no, he's like, he has so much growth heading his way, and I love how they depict how you start out a journey one way and end it completely changed. And I think that is actually such an Avatar thing, actually. What I was gonna say, like, because you guys did a beautiful description of how Zuko's like change and growth is, like how all these different layers are happening, and we get to see the seedlings of it at the very first. How he starts out as a bad guy we don't like, and then ends as a redeemed character. That's a really complex concept, and I think I don't know if the creators did this on purpose, but giving him a bad haircut early on kind of helps. Like if I was a child, I was like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy. He has like a really bad haircut. I think that would kind of help simplify that on some level as a child. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be like Zuko because he's grumpy and all these other reasons, and he has a really whack haircut.
But like his haircut is not that different
from Sokka. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They're pony bros.
Yeah.
Like that's another comparison.
They're not that different.
Well, like Sokka at least has the fucking, you know, he's got just the side shade, where Zuko only has the ponytail.
He's got ponytail and trauma, so this is a big disadvantage.
But I mean, this is the kickoff to the whole journey, right?
Yes.
Whereas like the last episode was, it's like we're kind of exploring this little.
It's
This
like
kicks
meet and
off.
greet.
Yeah, it's meet and greet. Like this kicks off the journey. Like this.
Yeah.
They talk to Gran, and Gran is like, "Go, make me proud. You made me believe in magic again," or whatever she
You
said.
made me have
Destiny-
hope.
Yeah, you gave me hope for the first time in a really long
Destinies are
time.
intertwined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like that's the last time they see their fucking grandmother in the entire series.
I got so mad. It was like Gran went for a hug and Sokka just went for like the light taps. I'm like, you fool.
You hug her.
You hug her. You want to be a man? You hug your gran. But he's just a child. He's trying to chat it up still. So he's coming from a place of a lot of trying to live up to stereotypes, really. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's so fascinating. I'm mad at Sokka for not hugging Gran. Like I'm riled up right now. Someone hold me back.
Man, that like moment when they're riding Appa, sorry. I was gonna say Aang. I was like, that's the wrong name. When they're riding Appa and Sokka's going through all these ridiculous things, and all of a sudden he says, yep, and this like magical moment where Appa just like rises into the air and they're flying, and Sokka's like, we're flying! It's just amazing.
I gotta say, I've watched this show like so many times, and Appa flying is so natural to me. Like it's not even a question. So I was a bit confused. Like, why are you guys shocked? It's a flying, but it's a bison in the air. What are you confused about, Zuko? I don't understand what you're confused. But then I realized, like, wow, this is something that has not been seen for like 100 years.
Yeah.
So they're like, what is that? Like, oh right.
The thing is, it's literally called a flying bison. It's in the name,
Yeah,
guys.
Aang was like, this is my flying bison.
bison.
But to be fair, Sokka
He's a
has
skeptic.
rode it twice now
And
when
where-
it
yeah.
hasn't flown.
Yeah.
That's true.
But also, like, something that's really cool about this episode is we get to see the first, basically, encounter between Zuko and Aang.
Yeah.
Which was, like, the first of many, right?
Or like the first encounter between firebenders and Aang, where they didn't know what the fuck to do with him, and he was running circles around everybody.
Well, it's, again, like, like they haven't seen a flying bison in 100 years. They haven't seen an airbender in 100
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, nobody
so-
knows how to fight them.
Yeah, and, like,
Oh,
again,
so
we get our first real taste of, like, airbending, too. Like, airbending in combat, which is really
combat,
cool.
Yeah.
Which, like, it wasn't even really combat.
Like he
I
wasn't.
guess he was like mostly defending himself or avoiding.
But that's what airbending is.
I
Like,
know.
you just read out the description of
I
air,
know,
and,
I
like,
know.
and that's what airbending is, and that is airbending combat,
Yeah,
Like,
no, it was really cool. I said it during the episode too, but like when Aang like smacks Zuko with the mattress like
Yeah.
up and down, it had like the same energy as like the Hulk taking Loki and like slamming him back and forth. It's like same energy.
Yeah. What I found really fascinating about just kind of because I someone who's completed the series, I just have this, when I think of Aang, I just think of like such a competent bender and a master, and it's so strange, like in these moments in these early episodes, like he is a child who has been bestowed powers, but at the heart of it, he's just a child, and like he left the as he's probably one of the youngest avatars to be told that he was an avatar. He is 12 years old at the beginning of the series, and typically avatars are the identity of an avatar is typically revealed around the age of 16 when they're more adult-like. So just thinking that he is still a child, and he's holding his own, not only having to hold his own, but trying to think of, from the mentality of a child, like, how do I overcome the threat of these adults who could throw fire at me, who have so much authority and have the ability to hurt other people. And I think it's so strange seeing, we're going alongside him and seeing that maturity develop. Like, in my mind, I have that lens of, like, Aang is this, like, he is a warrior, and where he is right now, like, when I think of Aang in the lens I see him, he's a warrior who's able to fight. Like, he goes ham for Appa and his friends, like, no doubt. Flip of a switch, avatar state, let's go. But in these very moments, he's just a kid thrust into danger and having to deal with all these dangers from the perspective of still being a child. And that's insane.
Yeah.
Where do you think that he gets the confidence to face that? Because when I was 12 years old
Right.
and a teenager was confronting me, I was like, no, you get it your way. All right, no problem. I'm going to back down. And like, even in the show, Zuko's like, you're just a child. He's like, you're just a teenager. It's like, where does he get that confidence?
Well, I think, like, you know, when you grow up in a monistic lifestyle and you've already mastered airbending and you know you're a master of airbending, I feel like that kind of bestows a little bit of confidence on you. But I think we also get a first look into, like, maybe why Aang was... Like, I don't know exactly, I don't remember how exactly you get chosen to be an avatar, but we kind of see why maybe Aang should be the avatar, because instead of standing there and fighting the firebenders in the village where people could get hurt, he's like, oh, if I just go with you, you'll leave these people alone, and he goes with them, you know? And then he just says, take care of Appa.
Yeah. Make sure Appa's taken care of.
Yeah. And then he fucking escapes, because he's fucking badass, but...
Yeah, it's so strange. Like, all these things that, like, kind of make sense to us as adults is, like, these are probably, like, just hitting him right now in these moments of, like, oh man, I have to fight for my life. And I think that's why I was so horrified, because I was seeing, during this rewatch, I was actually seeing a 12-year-old child who was fighting for his life when he was trapped in a room with Zuko. Like, the way he was breathing, spastically, and trying to find, you could see the cogs turning his head of, like,
Like,
how do I make
What can I do? What can I do?
And then resulting and being in a position where it's like, wow, I've done everything I can. I've tried evading, I've tried detaining him with his own little, with his own decorations. I have to resort to violence. So it's so strange seeing that progression of logic of, like, wow, this is something I have to do. And I think that's a conflict that is reflected in the series finale. It's like, these are all the things that I've had to do, and is, spoiler, is taking Ozai's life something I have to do too. So it's cool seeing that reflected, is what I'm saying. I'm going off. My bad.
No, I definitely agree with that too. And it's like, it's the first combat between Aang and Zuko, right? The first of many. But, like, you see that he isn't as confident in his abilities when he first comes up against a powerful firebender like that. You know what I mean? Like, he is kind of on the defensive a little bit, and I feel like he kind of always is, like, a little bit... He always seems, like, very... Just kind of, like... I know airbending is defensive, but it's, like... He always is just kind of flying by the seat of his pants. You know? It's always like he's got the move at the last moment, where it's like, Zuko is like, okay, I'm going to fucking punch you with fire and throw a kick at you. Aang's like defending, but he's also like, then he throws air. Like, it always seems like Aang is just like flying by the seat of his pants, and he doesn't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Just to add to your point was, sorry, loading. It was about the same fight scene. But seeing, I think I lost it. It'll probably come back later. But yeah.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But like, go ahead.
It's all good. When like Tara is above and she sees water bending for the first time, and her eyes just like light up, and she's like, oh my god, that's what water bending is supposed to look like. And it was just like this crazy moment for her. And even as they get down onto the ship, she's like, did you see that? And it was just like this really cool moment for her, just understanding what a mastery of her element would look like.
Yeah, like, I see what you're saying, but is it maybe more because she just witnessed the Avatar for the first time?
It could also be that. I bet it's like I bet it's both.
I think it's interconnected.
Yeah, well, I think it's interconnected because she hasn't ever seen water bending before.
Yeah,
not like that. Oh my, like all the spiral emotions and so beautiful.
And like how she's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then she like fucks it up, and she's like, hey, I bet I can fuck it up in the same way again, and so she just turns around.
That's deductive reasoning right there. Yeah.
But she's in that moment. I feel like that moment was just like such a switch in like a light bulb in her brain because she wasn't running away. She was completely trusting in her abilities to take on these people so that she didn't get captured or murdered. Because they were coming at her. And she turned her back on them.
That's scary. You don't do that. Please don't do that, folks at home.
But, like, it was just, like, this crazy, like, light bulb for her, and she trusted in herself, and I feel like that was a huge step for her.
Yeah, I agree. That was, like, a milestone, honestly. I think I remembered what I was going to say about Aang. So, in future seasons, you see, like, Aang step out into these different roles, like Aang the Avatar, and in essence, like, because I just imagine Aang being a badass and be able to do it, like, be able to throw down essentially. So, like, I see Aang knowing that I know what he becomes as Aang the warrior, and I think what I see here is Aang in season 1, episode 2 is like he's still Aang the trickster, I guess. And I think that really speaks to, because it's all about resourcefulness. It's not about stopping the fight immediately. It's more so about keep moving around and keeping himself safe and getting to objectives. It's not, his objective isn't to immobilize, but to simply be in a position where he's in an advantage.
And I think that that's really his, like, Air Nation roots coming out. I think that that's, like, kind of what the Air Nation almost, like, epitomizes, you know? It's, like, defensive and, like, using people's force against them and stuff like that. And it's never, like, about violence. And as he learns more of the elements, that's when he becomes, like, more like, no, I'm just going to stand my ground instead of, like, fly around and all over this type.
Going back to, like, the trickster thing, I think that is a really good title for Aang, especially, like, maybe within even the first season.
Yeah.
Because, like, we see in, like, a flashback in later episodes of, like, him and his mentor throwing pies at people.
Yeah, Gyatso.
And I really feel like this is, like, something that Aang just is. He is a trickster. He likes playing pranks on people.
And like I said, I just think that's more like, I feel like the Air Nation is a little bit more lighthearted because because they are more nomadic and monk-like, I don't want to say achieved enlightenment, but, like, the quest for enlightenment is maybe a little bit more real with them, whereas, like, everybody else is focusing more on, like, martial prowess and kind of, like, how they can affect the world. The Air Nation and the Air Nomads kind of take that inner journey and, you know, like, very, like, monk-like, like Buddhist monks and stuff like that.
Well, that was a lot of what the wiki said, too, is, like, a lot of even, like, elemental stuff was based on, like, I think they mentioned, like, Hinduism and Buddhism, as well as, like, there was another one. And basically all
Taoism?
of the... maybe? Anyways, a lot of these things have either 4 or 5 elements and, like, different things that people basically master and stuff like that. And a lot of this show is based on those practices.
I also like in the end how we still see that Aang is that 12-year-old kid, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, okay, we're going on this fucking super serious quest, but we have to stop here, here, and here so that we can ride the giant, or the hog monkeys or whatever.
And the hopping llama. The giant koi fish.
Yeah,
it's like, we gotta make all these stops along the way so that we can have some fun. Like, I know I'm supposed to save the world, but I'm still a kid and I want to go on the hopping llamas.
Aang is that friend on the road trip where it was like, yes, we are stopping here just because.
Yeah. Let's stop at this roadside attraction. Let's stop at that roadside attraction. Hey, wait, there's a cool rock I want to look at. No, that's just me.
During this watch, Tierra, you pointed out, you said there was a moment at the end of the episode where they're flying on Appa, beautiful yellow colors in the sky and the sunset, and then the shadow just kind of hovering over them after Aang discloses that he never wanted to be the Avatar. And you said something along the lines, it was like, beautiful symbology.
Yeah, like, that symbolism though.
Yeah. What was going through your head during that?
Well, it was just like they were flying under the clouds and they were in shadow, and Aang had this, like, really sad or, like, distant look on his face. And then they, like, Katara starts talking him up, and he's like, you're the Avatar! And then, like, this, like, bright lights are shining through the clouds, and she's like, you're meant to do this is your destiny. And he's like, yeah, I can do this. And then all of a sudden they're, like, in this full sunlight.
Yeah.
And it was just, like, this crazy symbolic moment. And I was like, ah, yes, the symbology.
And I mean, it was probably completely intentional from the creators of the show, because something that you really learn about like cartoons especially, and animation, is that it takes so much effort to just do 3 seconds of animation. You have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours of work to make a little 3-second clip. So nothing is by accident.
No.
You know, everything has a meaning, especially when you're watching cartoons or animations.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, yeah, I watched some animation stuff because I like it. But yeah, it's, and a lot of cartoons like even rely on subconscious symbolic gestures and stuff. So they put a lot of that into cartoons because like even if we don't pick it up like consciously, if we're like, oh hey, that's pointing at that thing, it's like almost subconscious that we're like, oh, he was really doubtful of this and they were in the dark and now he's really excited about this and being more confident and now the light is shining on them. And whether or not that's like a intention, it's obviously intentional, but like maybe they didn't even think that people would pick up on that.
Well, and honestly, maybe it wasn't intentional because like maybe it was even just subconscious to the people who were creating it. Because like, you know, the classic example, like I'm a writer and like, you know, people analyze writing, and the classic example of like, you know, somebody writes that the curtains are blue.
Oh, he was sad. That's why they were blue.
He was sad, or maybe like but maybe the curtains were just fucking blue. But that writer is still trying to convey a tone, an emotion, and like maybe he didn't have a reason for putting the curtains as blue, but he was still trying to convey something and build this scene. So maybe even he didn't know why the curtains were blue, but they were blue for a reason still. That got really meta, but
that's great.
No,
it's like the goal is to like invoke emotions that connect you to the world.
Yeah. I think that
awesome.
Avatar does a really good job of that. Like,
I agree.
I've watched it many, many times, and I have noticed throughout some of my watch throughs that like the dark scenes that deal with really deep issues are generally colored darker than the lighthearted scenes. And even like in the intro, you can kind of see that with like air riding, his like little air ball is like a very light, bright scene, and like some of the other ones are dimmer and darker because they're dealing with darker issues.
I want to build off of that because I think that really just now that you guys are making me conscious of like how the setting and the imagery like affects us, like how it affects us perceiving the story. Going back to Zuko and Aang fighting in Zuko's room. Zuko, you have such a scary looking room. How do you sleep in that? First of all, is blood red? What candles are you using?
There's we were going dragon mask.
You can't call him out. He's not a real person.
I'm calling you out, fictional Zuko, season 1, episode 2. I know where you live. What's the timestamp for what that room is? Just kidding. I'm coming at you. But I feel like some things, the Air Nomads value freedom, detachment in order to get enlightenment or perspective. So just, I think what the setting of the dark colors and having like a layout of that room, it just created the sense of like claustrophobia, I guess, that Aang was feeling during that fight of feeling trapped and having to try to escape. I think that really, what you guys are telling me now about the intentionality of the art that's just really speaking to me now that you guys have pointed that out. That's really cool. I think something else that's sticking out for me going back to the end scene of them flying on Appa and the golden light and the shadow passing over, I feel like the shadow crossing over all of them after Aang discloses that he never wanted, when Katara said, "Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar?" And then you just see the sad look on his face, and it's because I never wanted to be. And the shadow just hovers over all of them. And I think that spoke something deeply to both Katara and Sokka, and I think that's something they kind of bonded over simultaneously that really like brings them together on the same page. The war they never wanted to be someone. Katara and Sokka never they understand the essence of
the responsibility.
The responsibility.
Right? They're all thrust into these roles that they never intended to be in.
Aang's is very much more tangible because he doesn't want to be this person that has the responsibility of the world.
Of the whole world.
But, I mean, we talked about it. Sorry, but we talked about it with Sokka in the last episode too. Is that he was thrust into this role of responsibility
and
as well.
So was Katara. Yeah. She had to take on the role of Sokka's mother figure.
Yeah.
And she's younger than him. How much of a stressor was that?
Yeah. I think the shadow represented something of almost reality or the constructs of society kind of taking something away from these children and giving them something that a burden essentially that they are now tasked to rise up to. And I think, I don't know, for at least in my head, I feel like that's the end of the episode of the first, that's getting past, that's all of that. What just happened is their backstory now, not just individuals on their different path. It's going back to Dungeons and Dragons. It's after the party has had their first real mission and have bought into each other's survival in a sense. And I think the shadow passing over was that for me, at least. So that's what I interpreted. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, it's their connection now. They have now bonded bonded through adventure, through combat, and through a shared kind of burden that they all experience. One thing that I also really like about this kind of episode is that we get to see the first buddings of the relationship that Katara and Aang will develop, and how Katara will always be on Aang's side. You know, Katara always backs Aang. She's always there for Aang, and we see that for the first time in this episode as well.
And even taking off of that, not even just how Katara backs Aang for the most part. It's how Sokka is the voice of reason or logic in how they deal with things, right? And he's the skeptic.
Yeah, and he'll bring it up, but then he'll go along with whatever everybody else is doing.
He's very skeptical of everything all the time, though.
Going back to Sokka, actually, that's something that really stuck out into my head. Was the lens that when looking at Sokka through the season 3 and season 2 lens, is Sokka's super smart and can figure stuff out, and he's really good at planning and keeping everyone on the same page and being a leader in that way. And then the Sokka through lens of season 1, episode 1s and 2, it's oh yeah, Chad Sokka, yeah. I don't know, I did not anticipate this character to be so smart, and I guess it's another subverting of expectations, but I was looking for those seeds of super genius Detective Sokka, and it's actually seen and it actually influenced them being able to do what they were able to do. Due to his keen mind, he was able to recall the words that he heard, maybe once or twice, of how to make Appa fly. So I was okay, I see you, genius Sokka. You're underneath all that Chad energy. You'll get through that. You'll find yourself. I see you're paying attention. Yeah, so it was really... It's so funny just seeing Sokka try to chat it up. Try to be a full-on, Chad bro.
I don't think that he had many opportunities for, using his really keen mind in the village he grew up in. So I think that is something that he's had, but hasn't, worked on. And I think that, going out into the wider world gives him a chance to develop that skill.
And he just takes it... I mean, I'm sure all these characters are just sponges of lessons and everything they encounter, but Sokka really needs to lean into that as the non-bender, and it's amazing. So
no, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Any final things you want to say about episode 2 of The Last Airbender? I think we've covered quite a bit.
We did pretty good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. It's good.
Also, I guess one thing that I really noticed is you can kind of see Iroh's and Zuko's relationship. Zuko tries to order Iroh to do something, and Iroh accepts it. Yeah. But then he just passes it off to some minion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He's
Zuko's
okay.
do this, and I was hey, do that.
He's like, okay, I'll take it from you and I won't make a thing, but also, minion, just do this.
I think it's he's such a good example of, like, I guess you don't need to be a spaz to be a good leader, and I think that's what Zuko has known, because spoiler, his dad's a spaz.
Yeah.
So it's so cool. Like Zuko is officially in charge, but you could kind of tell that Iroh's the one who's like, only because Iroh kind of lets it happen.
Yeah.
I guess, if that makes sense.
But it's cool that Iroh doesn't challenge Zuko's authority in front of the people the people that he needs to be in charge of. Like
there's lots of times where he does, but it's mostly not in front of his men.
Yeah, no, there's many times where his Iroh is still the teacher of Zuko, and in private they have that relationship. Iroh is the master, Zuko is the apprentice, but in front of Zuko's men or like any of the soldiers, I feel like I don't know, maybe we'll see it later on, but at least in this episode he does not challenge Zuko's authority.
I think Iroh gets fed up and does call him out later on in front of people, but that's like a later on thing.
I think he's such a good example of that. Sorry, I lost my thought. Oh no, come back.
Force it into existence.
Good idea happened. These words I'm saying are relevant.
Yeah. So cool. I guess that'll be it for this episode. Again, thank you very much for joining us on episode 2.
Thank you, guys.
The Last Podbender. And join us again, episode 3, coming at you. I'm Cody Smith.
Tierra Penner.
Tim Ocampo.
And again, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Pew, pew.
Yip, yip, flame, yo. I didn't ask for all this water bending and magic. Sorry, I thought we were just doing nonsense. Are you...
Flame on, hot people.
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? Whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, whatever podcatcher you may be listening on, ratings and reviews are huge. They help us to break through those evil algorithms, and it will help us to reach the most amount of glorious Avatar fans that we can possibly reach. If you would like up-to-date information regarding this podcast, follow us on Instagram. You can find us at the.last.podbender on Instagram. If you would like more information about all of the shows that Froggy Style Productions produces, including this one, follow them on social media, and you can find them at Froggy Style Productions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For more ways in which you can support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.